Bob Corker is the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. He's joining me now live from Capitol Hill. Senator Corker, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Jim.
So we just heard Matt Olson. He knows this issue very well, spent a lot of time as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center talking about this surge in intelligence to combat ISIS, specifically the issue of encryption, terrorists going dark. Do you agree that this is a crisis in terms of putting a damper on the ISIS threat?
There was no question that greater intelligence sharing and gathering is very important. The new technologies that exist that allow ISIS to download to encrypted platforms so that they can communicate without us listening in as we could in the past is a difficulty, but also some of the cultural issues that we have just in Europe in general. On one hand, they understand that, greater cooperation is necessary. On the other hand, in Europe in particular, and you've heard this and you've seen this debate over the last couple of years, there are concerns there about privacy issues, so they work against each other. But all of us who want to make sure that our citizens are safe, particularly here in the United States, from our perspective, intelligence is one of the key ingredients, if not the key ingredient, to keep those kinds of attacks from occurring.
I will hear this frequently from counter-terror officials, that the Europeans are in over their heads, some through no fault of their own. They just have a far greater number of jihadis running around there, and of course they're closer to the battlefields of Iraq and Syria. But as you mentioned as well, some of it is legal protections, etc. Are you saying that Europe is the weak link to some degree in the fight against ISIS?
Well, you got to, get 28 countries there, so it's very different than the kind of format that we have here. I think you saw earlier, Jim, you're well informed. I know pursue these issues constantly, but in Belgium in particular, even there were different speaking elements of the agencies, meaning that one language wasn't speaking well to the other. So there are a lot of problems there. There's no question. When you say weak link, I mean, it is a challenging environment with 28 different countries, plus, as you mentioned, the open borders issue. I mean, you have people constantly moving through. I was just down in the Balkans recently, and thousands of people are passing through on trains into Europe. And so the intelligence issue is a problem. Certainly the proximity, as you mentioned, with so many refugees coming in, and you and us and them knowing that many of these jihadists are embedded in those groups. So they have significant challenges, far greater than what we have here in the U.S. But what that means is there needs to be much greater cooperation between ourselves and them.
Another issue brought up in the hearing today was the need to deny safe haven for terrorists in Syria, but also as ISIS has expanded into places like Libya.
Right.
This idea of greater U.S. military intervention in Libya has been on the table for some time. Does the U.S. need to expand the war against ISIS into Libya in greater numbers?
Well, there's 6,500 people there per our estimates, and there's no question. And by the way, there are 3 different routes that are operating there. But it is a place, again, where we have this vacuum, and what we've known watching in Syria, what happened there, I think we missed an opportunity. I'll say it over and over and over again in August of 2013. But with Syria, with Iraq, with Libya, when you have these ungoverned places where governments are unstable, you have the creation of this land taking, the caliphate, if you will, that occurs with ISIS. And so no doubt denying safe haven has to be a part of what we're doing. We do need to get the countries there on the ground more fully involved. It does take U.S. leadership for that to occur, but it does take that. But let me just mention one of the things that came out today. This is all hitting it at the surface, the intelligence, the safe haven, all of those kinds of things. The fact is there are root causes that this is happening, and those root causes are still there, and there are going to be organizations that come behind ISIS until those root causes are dealt with. This is going to be a long-term struggle that our nation and others who care about Western values are going to be dealing with. And again, we need to combat it certainly now, the sort of the superficial issues, those things that keep us safe. But at the same time, what's driving this in that region is going to continue, and we've got to be more effective in countering those root causes, the poverty, the Wahhabism, the Salafism, the things that are the clerics that are driving this. Other clerics have got to be speaking out against. So they're a very, very complex issue. It's going to take years for us to resolve this, but certainly today, and urgent, is making sure that we keep our citizens safe here.
A years-long war. Senator Corker, thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Yes, sir.